tad bit late, but we just finished. And as soon as we get everyone on board, we'll begin. Let me see, Councilmember Rod, Ray. Oh, okay. Looks like we have everyone, right, Stephen?
Yeah, we're all here now.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Good evening. I'd like to call to order the North San Mateo County Sanitation District meeting. Let's see. Today is Monday, November 9th. And may I have a roll call, please?
Ms. DiGiovanni,
Present.
Dr. Dawes Mabal,
Here.
Mr. Ventura,
Present.
Ms. Manalo,
Present.
Mr. Sylvester.
Present. Thank you so much. Okay, moving on. I'll entertain a motion to accept the agenda.
Motion to agenda.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the agenda has been approved. Moving on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to accept the consent agenda?
Motion to accept the consent agenda.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Dr. Rod. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. That's the end of the consent agenda. The next item is public appearances and communications. And I'll defer to Stephen if we have any.
There are no public comments.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Okay, next item is reports. Anything from the Board of Directors? Okay, hearing none, we'll move to staff reports. Are there any staff reports?
No, sir.
Okay, oh, Mr. Piccolotti. All right, thank you so much, sir. All right, hearing none, this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you very much. And thank you for your patience in waiting for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, Stephen, is this the same link for the council meeting?
It is, yeah, same link.
Okay, great. We'll move right ahead into the council meeting. Good evening, everyone. Today is Monday, November 9th, 2020, and I'm calling to order the regular meeting of the City Council. If I can have everyone please stand for the pledge to the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, may I have a roll call, please?
Ms. DiGiovanni,
Present.
Ms. Manalo,
Present.
Dr. Rod,
Present.
Mr. Buenaventura,
Present.
Mr. Sylvester.
Present. Thank you very much. Next item is the approval of the agenda for the regular meeting of October 26, 2020. May I have a motion, please?
Motion to approve agenda.
We have a first. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Dr. Rod. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. The next item is the consent agenda, and looks like we have 5 resolutions. I'll entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Motion to accept the consent agenda.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember DiGiovanni. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The consent agenda has been approved. Thank you very much. That calls the end of the consent agenda. The next is public hearings. Item number 6, introduction of an ordinance adding chapter 5.92 to the Daly City Municipal Code and adoption of the short-term rental fees. And I'll turn it over to Ms. Morales. Good evening, Ms. Morales.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor.
Excuse me, Mayor, before you go, did you approve the minutes?
Yes, we did, council member. Let me see. Yeah, that was right after roll call, the approval of the agenda. Did you want to make a
No,
correction?
no.
No,
Approval of the
I don't think
minutes.
we did the minutes.
Yeah, I indicated approval of the agenda, which contained the regular meeting of October 26, 2020. Did I do that correctly? And that was approved. Madam City Clerk, do you have record of that?
If you wouldn't mind, could you please approve the minutes because the agenda was not properly uploaded?
Okay, thank you,
With my
Madam.
great appreciation. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk, and thank you, Council Member Buenaventura. I kind of included both of those in there, but let's do that separately. Thank you, Council Member Buenaventura. Entertain a motion to accept the regular meeting of October 26, 2020.
Motion to approve minutes.
Okay, we have a first. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Di Giovanni. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that motion carries. I think I did that last month, a couple of weeks ago before. Thank you, Councilmember Buenaventura. All right, moving on with public hearings, and Ms. Morales, please.
Thank you. 1 second, I'll just share my screen. And just to confirm everyone is able to see the presentation.
Mhm.
Great. Good evening, everyone. My name is Carmelissa Morales with the Planning Division, and I'll be presenting on the proposed short-term rental ordinance and fees. Just to reiterate what a short-term rental is and how it's how these regulations are going to affect Daly City. The short-term rental, short-term rental is defined as a home or individual room within a home rented to an individual for a period of 30 consecutive days or less. So just to be clear, the ordinance will not affect long-term rentals. So if you have a long-term rental for 6 months, these regulations would not apply, just as an example. In this slide, it outlines the objectives that have guided the ordinance. And many of you have heard various iterations of the ordinance, and these objectives have not changed. A lot of them have guided our revisions as well. So we continue to strive for things like not preventing the conversion of long-term rental units, as well as protecting affordable housing units, to name a few. And this is a condensed timeline of what has occurred to date. So at the very beginning, the City Council did convene a task force to think about potential short-term rental regulations that the city could adopt, and that occurred in 2018. And since then, up until September 2019, I'm sorry, there was a City Council study session that discussed those findings, as well as some time for staff to do some research and develop the ordinance. In October 2019 through January 2020, we had a total of 4 public hearings on this topic. And due to the pandemic, we sort of had to table the discussion, and we were able to pick that back up again and do a City Council committee meeting on September 1st. I'll go more into detail as to what was discussed at that time. And then the ordinance was scheduled again for a public hearing on September 28th. And due to the amount of public comments that we received, the City Council did decide to continue it to tonight's meeting, which is what we're presenting on today. And to go over the amount of public noticing that has occurred, we just like to say that we've posted in the newspaper, we've sent courtesy notices to interested parties. We just really tried to get the word out there to make sure those who were interested were understood what was happening and got a chance to review the ordinance before it was to be adopted. And this slide summarizes the main issues that have brought up in the public comments. So the biggest one was there was no consensus on the primary residency requirement. We had a lot of hosts who wanted less strict requirements, but we also had some others who actually wanted the primary residency requirement. So it was really hard to balance the two and get to a compromise. So We're hoping that we can get to that today. And I'd also like to go over what public comments we received on September 28th for that council meeting. Generally, the comments were about the same, but we did get some requests to table the ordinance because of COVID. But we also had some requests to approve the ordinance as is, just because of the amount of time that has passed. And this visual is just to show the amount of changes that have happened. We did try to listen to the public comment that we received. So initially, homeowners were the only hosts that were permitted. We did have the primary residency requirement since the beginning and the unhosted stay limits, just to name a few. But in November, we did add the tenants as an eligible host. We added multifamily dwellings as an eligible location. But we also required that that if you are a tenant, that you get permission from the homeowner. And then January, we clarified that short-term rentals were permitted in conjunction with long-term rentals. We removed some requirements for insurance, and we reevaluated the fees and increased it a bit. And there's a slide on the fees as well. And this month, we had to extend the amnesty period just because a lot of time has passed since we last introduced the ordinance. And we are creating some options for the city council to discuss in terms of unhosted stay limit and the primary residency requirement. And as I mentioned, we did revise the fees. So this is nothing new. We increased it to $225 for a new short-term rental permit, and then half of that for a renewal. And that's just to include the cost of services we would render after when we start implementing the ordinance. And in this slide, on the table, it shows how the number of units and listings have changed since October 2019. You see a slight dip from January to September, and it's likely due to the COVID-19 pandemic. But to date, we continue to receive many complaints. We're not really able to enforce anything because we don't have an ordinance in place. And most importantly, we're not able to collect any sort of tax on it, which has been an issue. And we hope that will sort of motivate us to adopt the ordinance just so that we can incur that and help us with any city costs. And so this slide briefly talks about what we discussed during the city council committee meeting. The meeting was with staff as well as 2 committee members that were appointed by the mayor. And that's where we discussed some findings on specific research topics that the council requested in the January 2020 meeting. The first one was, what was an Airbnb main superhost status, what that really meant. And it's more so just a status that's awarded every 3 months, and it's based on the most experienced host. So sometimes you could lose it, and sometimes you can have it for multiple years and things like that. The council also requested that we compare the primary residency requirement with other cities. And this sort of gave us a good idea as to what other cities are doing. What we did find was that every city that we looked into had a primary residency requirement. So it ranged from 6 months to almost the entire year. And there was also an unhosted stay limit, but that varied. So it could be from 0 days to 120 days. And the fees were generally in line, so we were closely resembling Berkeley, Redwood City, and San Francisco. And this table, it's also in the staff report. This is more of a condensed version of it. We also added South San Francisco to have another city in San Mateo County to compare to. But as you can see, the fees are pretty in line with other cities in the Bay Area and in California. There's still a primary residency requirement for everybody, and the unhosted stay limit ranged from 90 days to 120 days. And also with the exception of Santa Monica, who doesn't owe it altogether. So these were the recommendations that were presented to the committee members. Staff would still like to keep the 90-day unhosted stay limit, but we are open to 120 days. And that, if we were to change it to 120 days, the primary residency requirement would decrease slightly to about 8 months. But we would not like to increase the unhosted stay limit more than 120 days because it could increase the likelihood of a host claiming more than one residence, which would defeat the purpose of the primary residency requirement. And lastly, the fees, we did not think that it would be best to increase it at this time, just because those fees were assessed about a year ago, and we anticipate it'll increase, so we'd like to reassess that in about a year or so. And generally, the committee members were in line with our recommendations and asked us to move forward with scheduling this for our next city council meeting, as we've done. And this slide briefly talks about the potential options for hosts. So we recognize that it can limit a lot of hosts from doing short-term rentals, but they would still be allowed to with certain limits. There will be an amnesty period that will end on September 30th, which is in line with the business license renewal period. There are options such as doing an ADU, a JADU, which is really popular in Daly City. And the state has, as of January 1st, has removed the owner occupancy requirement for the next 5 years. So that is something to consider. And of course, the option is also to do a long-term rental. So the recommendations to the city council include introducing the ordinance, adopting the resolution to approve the proposed fees, and confirming the environmental assessment in the staff report. That concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, I'm available to answer any. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Morales. Do we have any comments from council for additional clarification before we open it up to public hearing?
Mr. Mayor, I do. I have a question for Ms. Morales. Thank you for that extensive presentation. I know you've been working on this diligently. My one question is, you mentioned about ADUs. So isn't there a state law that says that ADUs cannot be utilized for short-term rentals, or has that changed?
No, that's correct. So in our ordinance, we actually do not allow a short-term rental if there's an accessory dwelling unit on the property. That's just so that, because the state does want the ADU to be sort of like another long-term housing, a part of the long-term housing stock. So they discourage cities to do that. But that option that I presented was just an alternative to a short-term rental.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Are there any other comments? Okay, I have quite a few. Okay, we'll start off with similar to the Vice Mayor on ADUs. I'm reading a paragraph here, B. It says short-term rentals shall or not be permitted in inclusionary housing, I understand, income restricted housing, understandably, and it says properties with accessory dwelling units. So what I'm asking is basically on the hosted stay, if the owner or the one responsible resides in the ADU, therefore they can rent the whole house. Is that possible?
They would not be able, if you have an ADU at all on the property, you would not be able to rent a room in the home or the entire home for a short-term rental. And I think that the way that we've really thought about it is ADUs are allowed in a lot of other types of units these days, especially with the new state law. You can allow them in multi-family dwelling units now. And we just believe that in order to serve the long-term housing stock, we do not want it to be a part of the short-term rental ordinance. So we'd like to keep it as a long-term housing option.
Okay, see, that's a concern that I have, because obviously who can stay in an ADU? I guess if the owner or if the owner cannot even rent out ADU, say if there's a college student for like say 3 months of the year staying in an ADU, it sounds like it's not possible. So I'm wondering what good is the ADU? But that's just my opinion. Okay. The
Uh,
other, go
I can
ahead.
offer an answer to that if you allow me. Yeah. So actually, if you were to rent it to a college student, it would qualify as a long-term rental. So the short-term rental is just if it's like for the weekend or less than 30 days. So you can definitely do it with a college student, or if you have an extended family member who needs a place to stay. So that was the intention of the accessory dwelling unit.
Got it. Thank you. The next question I have, now, can we ponder this for a moment? An airline steward or airline pilot, they fly into San Francisco, they take Uber or a taxi to the home, and they rent one room, and maybe they're there for just overnight, but then they fly in again 3 or 4 days later. And basically, I'm thinking about crash pads. And would that not be possible in this situation?
I think it would depend on how the reservation is made. I mean, for example, if that employee rents it for 30 days, but they just keep coming back, and that space is still for them and it's not being used by someone else, potentially that works. But if you're renting it out for a night and then someone else is taking over and then another person, and then you come back for 2 or 3 days, it's sort of acting like a hotel, which is not something that we want in a residential neighborhood.
That's a good answer. So I'm just wondering if there's an enforcement method, or I guess it'd be up to the host to keep good books, to which they would have to be open for us to look, because I don't want to knock out this segment of saying the working class people who have come used to, hey, I do have a place to stay, but I'm only going to be here for one night. And it's probably much cheaper than paying the hotel rate. And I think that that's why they do this. So if we can get more clarification on that, that would be great. The last bit I had, I do understand the community and the neighborhood. And I was concerned, as one person had written, shall be responsible for any nuisance violations. Have we identified what considers or what constitutes a nuisance? Loud music after 10 p.m., or failure to put the garbage back inside, or failure to upkeep the lawn. I mean, I can see pros and cons on both sides. And if it's a long-term rental, some of these classified as nuisances could exist. So I'm concerned, and especially on some of these short-term rentals like Superhost and whatnot, they maintain their property even more so perhaps than some long-term residences. Is there any way that we can address this?
Oh, well, what we have included in the ordinance is that the responsibility will always fall on the property owner. So regardless of who's staying on the property, even if it's a long-term tenant or a short-term tenant, it is the responsibility of the property owner to maintain their property. So weeds or trash, those are all municipal violations. So we are able to cite that as a violation, and in the ordinance, there's this 3-strike rule. So if you have 3 or more, then it prevents you from applying again for at least the next cycle period. So we've sort of thought about that. I mean, we'll definitely have to reassess as we get those violations. But I mean, it will be the first year that we'll be doing it. But I think we'll be able to track it, and we'll be able to identify how many violations each host has based on the service that we'll render.
And if I may interject,
yeah.
Also with those sorts of violations, those are usually very easy to correct. And usually code enforcement sends a courtesy notice. So we say, hey, we're going to come by in 2 weeks and take a look and see if you have weeds growing. So if we go by in that 2 weeks and there are no weeds, then there is no violation. So these are going to be actually confirmed cases where the property owner did not clean up the situation. So these aren't, just because we got a complaint, it's a mark against you. It's going to be a verified complaint.
Thank you, Tatum and Ms. Morales. That is an excellent answer. And what I appreciated most, that would apply to either short-term or long-term. Because I do recall we had an incident near Martin Street where the weeds were growing over the sidewalk, and we had to take corrective action. I have no idea whether that was long-term. I have no idea whether it was short-term, but it was cleared up. So that makes me feel much better. Before I turn it over to my colleagues for additional questions, this is going to be very difficult for some of the hosts, but at the same time, I understand we want to keep our community as a community. I would probably recommend that at least we up it to 120 days in the unhosted stays. So it gives some leverage, something. I'm trying to put myself in the person's shoes. There are some pros in the sense if I visited a city and decided to stay in a short-term rental, this would not be possible if I went instead and stayed in a hotel. I think it adds to bringing more people to Daly City, seeing what it's like. I mean, I've seen a couple even rent a short-term rental for one day just to have a wedding in the backyard. But this would not be possible if we didn't have the capability of short-term rentals. So just my comment. Thank you. Okay, council members, are there any other council member comments? Vice Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. I think along the same lines as you mentioned around nuisances, I'd like to know if there's any indication within the ordinance around noise. I know that's been a lot of what I've heard from some people that have these short-term rentals around them, that, it becomes like very loud, and how will that be captured? Obviously, we have a noise ordinance in general. Is that indicated within, it is still kind of keeping our neighborhood, we have quiet neighborhoods all over Daly City, but when we do have these short-term rentals, there's sometimes loud music, noise, etc. How is this indicated within the ordinance?
The ordinance doesn't specifically call out the noise ordinance, but it does cite any municipal code violation that could occur on the property. As Tina mentioned, some violations, sometimes they're harder to track. I'm sure the police department gets a lot of noise violations, and then when they get there, sometimes the music is off, or there's no way of them of really knowing how often it occurs. But I think the advantage of having the ordinance is there's actually a local contact person that hopefully the neighbors or the host will provide their information to their adjacent neighbors in case there's any noise complaints. So it's not just the police that they could refer the complaint to. And we haven't looked at this much further, but there are some companies that have like 24-hour call centers where people can file complaints and they can contact the local contact person automatically, or if that's not addressed, they can contact the police. So there's certain options. It's just sometimes the noise complaints are a bit harder to track, but at least we'll be able to generate a record of it.
Okay, thank you. And with that number that neighbors or can contact, how is that going to be accessible to the community?
We, in the application for the short-term rental permit, we will definitely ask for a 24-hour contact person that can can be there to respond immediately. I mean, if they're not able to, that might result in a violation. It will also just depend on the services that we render. So if we decide to take that option where we can automatically call or have someone call to address a complaint, that's something that we will have the opportunity to do. But at least we have that contact information. I would say we haven't really discussed the implementation phase that further, but that is something to consider.
Thank you. I think that's, I think it's wonderful that you're now going to have a contact person 24 hours or like within 24 hours. I think my concern is exactly that around like, how do you contact the person that is responsible, you know, to ensure like, obviously you tell your guests, you know, not so many people, not too loud or whatnot. But when it gets to that point, like, I'm sure other people are like, well, who do you contact? And you're not, of course, don't want to contact the police or whatnot, but I think it'd be useful to play out how it would be accessible to the community. But I think that, we already have short-term rentals in many areas of the city, as indicated by your report. And we need to move forward with this, but I love the level of detail. I think it's just fine tuning, just really the concerns that I've heard from residents in regards to, just noise or even just people like the blocking driveways, etc. and whatnot. I think it's great that people are coming to our city because then they will eat in our city, they will see our city, they'll be able to help the small businesses. But there's a balance of ensuring that the quality of our neighborhoods do not, it remains. And then so that those are my major concerns around noise, and also ensuring like when they do have these short-term rentals and there's more than how many people, like what is the parking situation? I know that's something that has come down the line when there's just so many cars blocking the sidewalks, etc. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like people visiting our city. It's just, it's in our neighborhoods. And then there's a balance of ensuring, that respect towards our neighborhoods to maintain it. So.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Ms. Morales and Tatum, I'm sure that if there are any violations to include parking, that we create transparency for communities, even though you may not know that your next door might be a short-term rental, but at the same time, if there's a violation like blocking the driveway, that at least our citizens know, regardless of who does it, either a short-term rental or a long-term rental, that a report is made. And further investigation can come down the line at a later time. Oh, wait a minute, that's a short-term rental. But the mere fact is to alleviate and mitigate the problem of illegally parked vehicles. So I think we need to create that for our citizens, just like our Beautify campaign coming up. See something, say something. So that would be good if we can do that in this regard as well.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember DiGiovanni.
Yeah, may I ask, I have a couple of things I'd like to ask Ms. Morales. First of all, Ms. Morales, great presentation. You guys did a lot of work on this. Ms. Mother said, great job. But I have a couple of things that you guys were very detailed, but when it says the local contact information, what I was wondering is there something in there that you could say that they can respond physically to the short-term rental within 1 hour? when the unit is occupied. Add that in there. That's something that I did see in the South San Francisco one, where they added that in there to where they could have to physically respond. Also, providing a conspicuous spot within the place that they're renting, that they provide the contact information of the person in case there are issues, along with health and safety information for those that are renters, including local hospitals, clinics, non-emergency police contact information, and put it in a conspicuous spot as well. In case that, they themselves might have issues of coming to a strange area. And the other thing that I took note of was when it came to the superhost, I wasn't sure how, Ms. Morales, how was it that the committee suggested about the superhost? The superhost for me, when I read through it, although be it probably it was the Airbnb, if I that created this superhost. I'm concerned about if we adopt a part of it because it's their proprietary and they're the ones that created it. I didn't know if the council or what your views were, Ms. Morales, when you guys looked into the superhost, but just the term of it and taking some of their ideas, I was concerned about trying to do that, whether we could find ourselves in a position of trying to copyright or take any of their proprietary ideas of the Airbnb. And let's see, physically being there. So, and then for the limit of the unhost, we do have a limit, is that correct? On the unhosted, Ms. Morales? Do we have that as well?
I think I'll answer for her. I think she might
Okay.
have got disconnected,
frozen.
but to
Thanks,
answer, we'll answer a list of your points. So
Yeah, thank
the
you.
first one about the contact information, we did review this section in the South San Francisco ordinance. I think that's something that we could easily include in the ordinance for second reading, if that's the pleasure of the council, which is posting contact information in a conspicuous location and providing health information as well. The second issue was the superhost designation. That was a question that came up at one of the council meetings. And so at the committee meeting, we provided information on what a superhost means, but there was nothing related to superhost that made it into the actual ordinance. So it was just staff providing information on what that means. And then what was the third one?
Putting the information in a conspicuous spot within inside of the person, the contact information. That was that one.
So we can do that. Oh, and the unhosted stay limit. The staff is proposing a 90-day unhosted stay maximum, but we have seen in other jurisdictions a 120-day maximum, which we could support that as well, if that is the council's pleasure. And once you go beyond the 120 days, you've created a situation where the house is essentially able to earn enough money to pull it out of the rental or ownership market for residents. So we do not recommend going beyond 120-day limit.
Okay, right. And the only other one I believe was because you guys did such a great detailed thing, health and safety. I want to make sure that I think you guys covered so much by examining every little nook and cranny. If I missed something at the time, I might have it after public comment. I appreciate your time, Ms. Mother said, and everything that your staff put into this ordinance. And now that it actually will help that we will have an ordinance so that people know at home that it should calm things down out there. That's what we're hoping. By not having an ordinance, it's things that our city didn't have a privy, is that correct, privy oversight to control. But now that if we do have an ordinance, then we'll be able to have something to go to, that you'll be able to have something for your staff. And I think safety, but thank you. And I'll wait till after public comment. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, council member. Are there any other comments before Dr. Ron, go ahead.
Yes, so I just want to say thank you for the staff. I know it's been a long time coming back and forth and the many edits. I was just wondering, I'm just kind of viewing through the ordinance and just wondering, maybe I should wait till Ms. Morales gets on. Ms. Morales, are you back on?
Ah, there she is.
Yes, I'm so sorry about that.
I know how it is. Uh, quick, I just want to say thank you again for the staff for, it's long overdue for this ordinance. I just want to know if there's any language about the amount of short-term rentals within, I don't know, a neighborhood or a block.
Mhm.
We wouldn't want like a whole block of homes being all short-term rentals. Is there any language with that?
The current ordinance does not have anything that has to do with like geographical locations. It wasn't recommended. I mean, it's something that we can definitely look into, but I think what we'll find is that there will be a lot of rentals near like public transit stops. I think if you look on Airbnb right now, you'd probably see many of them along like the Daly City BART station or by Colma. It's just a more attractive location. It might not be the easiest thing to enforce as well, because then we'll have to manage a list of how many are still in commission. It's something we can look into, but it's not something that we would support at this time, especially with the services that we're rendering.
And I think also, if I may interject, I think when you see the maximum stay limits, you're going to bring that Airbnb back to a more residential unit. And so you're not going to, even if you have multiple ones on a block, given the amount of days that they're allowed to rent per year unhosted, they probably won't be all happening all at the same time. So I think the limitation on maximum nights of stay in an unhosted situation sort of curbs the impact of having multiple in an area.
Yes, and I know Pam and other council members mentioned the parking situation. There is a one booking per stay, so that can limit the amount of parking that these rentals will take up. So the way we envisioned it was that the people that are staying in the short-term rental would replace the long-term renters. So it would just be a one-to-one swap. And the ordinance does require the host to provide on-site parking.
That's all for me, Mayor.
Thank you, Dr. Rod. Any other comments before we open up the public hearing?
Yeah, just one more, Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Thank you. Ms. Rouse, welcome back, and thank you for all your hard work as well. I just wanted to, I guess, would you call it piggyback on Dr. Rod about, because I know that, I believe we had a person come that had like about 3 or 4 in one block, which that's pretty excessive. But like you said, it's hard to control. But if you happen to see anything or look into it, and if there's anything that to do that, because I believe the woman did say that the whole block at that time at one of our meetings, that's quite a lot in one block. So for her, and strangers coming in and out, that seems to be a lot for our seniors as well, or their concerns, the families. I know we received a film of a mother that was not able to leave out her front door because there was somebody that had been intoxicated and had come on her front step. So, there have been some issues like that. So about safety and too many in one area with strangers that we don't have any idea who they are in the neighborhood. So thank you. Thanks, Ms. Mothershead. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? All right, this time I would like to open it up to the public. And what I'll do is I'll defer to Stephen. I guess you're going to be pretty busy there, Stephen, and you have the floor, sir.
Okay, we have actually 5 public comments today for the public hearing. So bear with me as I get through these. The first is from Benjamin Butler, and it says, "Dear Council, I've done extensive research on all legal and administrative aspects of the short-term rental business in San Francisco, and I am active in local short-term rental groups. We, who have homes in Daly City, fully expected to meet with the committee working on proposed Daly City ordinance, but COVID happened. I have been a landlord for over 25 years. The entire nation has been focusing on surviving this pandemic, and the short-term rental business ended except for a brief time when first responders who came to help in the Bay Area. I was shocked and blindsided to discover that the city would be considering a short-term rental ordinance when we never had the chance to meet with the committee on this matter as was promised, particularly in light of crash in the travel market. It's like making new laws for eat-in restaurants when most are closed. Sadly, the proposed short-term rental ordinance is basically the boilerplate plan crafted by the paid consultant that Daly City hired. Legally, this is a conflict of interest since the consultant seeks to profit from enforcement and transient occupancy tax collected on behalf of the city. In fact, since Airbnb will not be providing any services to support the proposed ordinance, it is impossible for the consultant to provide enforcement or collection services that would stand up in court. You need only look to San Francisco. The above notwithstanding, the proposed ordinance should be modified as follows. 1, grandfather in those who have an existing business license and no complaints, such that they are exempt from the primary residence requirement and any unhosted stay limitation. 2, delete the indemnification and hold harmless agreement as it is not needed in California pursuant to Government Code 818.6 and it is burdensome, is an unnecessary expense, and is oppressive. Even San Francisco has no such requirement. Sincerely, Benjamin Butler. The next comment is from Linda Lighthizer. It says, to the Daly City Council and staff, in the past months since this matter was continued, our group of home sharers has repeatedly made requests to meet with the members of the council, staff, and a group that has been described as a short-term rental committee. Our goal continues to be to bring perspective and potential solutions to alleviate impasses on the current draft legislation. As of this date, our attempts to set up such a meeting have failed. Qualified, experienced hosts who have attended all of the hearings have not been granted a chance to offer our help in the crafting of the legislation that will affect our livelihoods. We are only given the restraints that the current public committee process provides. In spite of this frustration, the parties are incredibly close to agreement. The overall goals set out for this ordinance are not in question. In fact, there are only a few areas which are unworkable in the eyes of the Daly City Home Sharers Action Committee. Changes we have continuously stressed are 1, create a way for some non-full-time residents to continue to use their homes for short-term rentals. The alternatives we have presented include A, set up a limited number of non-resident or vacation home licenses, replenished through attrition or through additional conditions to be determined. Many suggested requirements have been suggested in a number of previous correspondences. The current draft as written is an all-out prohibition for these hosts. B, allowing current registered hosts without serious complaints to continue hosting indefinitely, essentially creating a grandfather clause to allow these small businesses to continue serving Daly City lodging needs and tourism. This would give these hosts the chance to keep their homes as viable income streams and also provide Daly City with TOT or revenue. Number 2, delete the indemnification and hold harmless agreement in the ordinance as it is not required in California. Note, San Francisco and other short-term rental ordinances in other California cities do not include this provision. Finally, we are all feeling the disastrous financial effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Short-term rentals are virtually non-existent at this time. Travel, tourism, and state of California public health restrictions have put a halt to almost all activities. That is why we wish to appeal to this council to pause the adoption of this legislation again. Please allow time for the parties affected by this ordinance before you help create solutions that would benefit all concerned. Best regards, Linda S. Lighthouser. Okay. And then the next comment is from Arthur Schechtman. And it says, Dear Mayor Sylvester, please take a moment out of your day to read this letter. My name is Arthur Schechtman, and I am a Daly City homeowner. I have appeared at every council meeting regarding short-term rentals and spoke in front of yourself and the other council members every time. I understand that in your position, it must be very difficult to please everyone involved regarding this topic. Please do not limit unhosted stays. It makes absolutely no sense for someone to come stay in your home with the host intervening on their vacation or stay. Airbnb has very much been an alternative for people wanting to stay/vacation in a larger group, 4 to 8 people. Limiting to 90 to 120 days will absolutely defeat the purpose. One of my main arguments still stands regarding rising home prices not being the result of Airbnb hosts. People who own homes and rent them out on a short-term basis are not the reason for rising home prices in Daly City or the Bay Area. Silicon Valley and the ongoing tech bubble has always been the reason for rising home prices here. This started in the late 90s and has lasted almost 25 years. And unless tech companies leave the Bay Area altogether, we will not see a decrease in the cost of real estate. The Bay Area is one of the few places in the United States where it makes more financial sense to be someone's tenant rather than to purchase a home to live in yourself with your family of 3 to 4 people. The reason we see so many Daly City homes occupied by 6 to 10 people in a 1,800 to 2,000 square foot space is because of the ridiculous home prices. Since you and I have no way of moving Silicon Valley and big tech away from Daly City, we still have the desire to own a property in the city we love, is to rent in a format that still makes financial sense. A single-family house in Daly City today sells for north of $1.2 million, which means that your monthly payment is north of $6,000, if including property tax and insurance, if your down payment was 20%. The only way we can either break even on the property we own or maybe make a little money at the end of the month is by renting the house out in a way that brings tourists to Daly City. They spend, eat locally, shop locally, and overall spend locally. We do all of this while not taking away any money from hotels because we service a different type of tourist. The type that travels as a family and does not want to be broken up into 2 to 3 hotel rooms. Capping unhosted stays at a maximum of 90 days a year will end the ability to do this. I have over 240 positive reviews on Airbnb, which says a lot. I am also a superhost, a term that you have mentioned yourself in the past, which means I care for my home, the surroundings of my home, the neighbors, and the neighborhood. There are homes on my block that require major renovations, some that are deteriorating on the exterior, but along with other hosts, I can assure you that the homes of Airbnb hosts are exemplary and represent the type of exteriors that would make a mayor and his or her constituents proud. There is so much more I can share and say on this topic and would be happy to discuss with you. Thank you for taking time to read this. Have a great weekend, and I look forward to seeing you on Zoom November 9th. Okay, the next one is from Glenn Tresser, and it says, first, I have serious concerns about the COVID-19 situation. Unhosted stays are the best way to prevent COVID-19 from spreading. Elderly hosts actually prefer staying with their friends and arranging the unhosted stays to have more protection. This protects Daly City community more broadly. Until this situation with COVID-19 is cleared, there should be no restrictions on unhosted stays. COVID-19 situation affected many hosts. Some are stuck in other countries with no way to return to the USA. Registration and administrative matters seem to require hosts' presence. Therefore, I propose to prolong amnesty period till the end of 2021, by which COVID-19 situation hopefully improves. Second, I adjourn with the opinion of another respondent who suggested more relaxed rules about unhosted stays for superhosts. Putting strict restrictions on unhosted stays will drive many hosts out of Airbnb, reducing city gains from TOT and amount of tourists staying in Daly City. In the period of post-COVID recovery, these additional income sources are very important. It is not obvious that there are specific pressures in the current rental market in Daly City. I could see many vacancies available. Indeed, if this changes in the future, the city may reassess. And our final comment is from Joe Lighthizer, and it says, thank you for the opportunity to address the council on the matter of the draft STR ordinance. In brief summary of a letter emailed to the clerk earlier today, let me say that the requirement of principal residency is impossible for us to satisfy, but that we believe that other licensing conditions, many suggested in my letter and undoubtedly raised by my fellow hosts, would serve as well to address and mitigate community concerns about neighborhood security and quality of life. We continue to believe that these could be developed by collaboration between Daly City Council and hosts with exemplary records of good conduct for city listings. As I and others offered in January and several times since, we stand ready to participate constructively in such a process. which it is my understanding has not occurred to date. So let me conclude as I did last January. Even recognizing with appreciation that the revisions of the draft ordinance between its initial and latest versions have thoughtfully considered and incorporated several important issues raised by hosts during earlier public comment, nevertheless, the remaining requirement of primary owner or long-term tenant occupancy may well force us and others to end the use of the Daly City venues for STR by the fall of 2021. If that is the result, the stated goals of the draft ordinance would, in our case, be better realized by allowing us to continue as before with the addition of a TOT assessment. Thank you for your attention to and consideration of this and all earlier statements of our concerns and those of some of our fellow hosts. And let me just double check one more time that that was the last comment. Yes, that concludes the public comment.
Thank you, Stephen. What I would like to do at this time is close the public hearing. Madam City Attorney, would I need a motion to close?
You should have a motion, yes.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing at this time.
Motion to close public hearing?
Is there a second?
Mr. Mayor, may I ask just one quick question? It won't interfere with the moving forward.
Well, are you
I was trying to wait
entertaining-
till after the public comment to ask the question.
Yeah, I think that's the best way. So right now, so that we don't accept any more comments.
Okay, thank you.
So is there a second? First by Vice Mayor, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, second by Dr. Rod. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, Councilmember Di Giovanni, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Mayor. Only one quick thing. I remember Ms. Mother said, remember I had one more. Are you still there? Tatum?
Yes, I'm still here. Oh, and my lights are going on.
Sorry about that. When you were looking at the ordinance and putting all the details, would it be possible to have I like the part with South San Francisco, they're putting the permit number when they advertise. On if they do any advertising on for their units. I noticed that they are requiring that they put the permit number on there.
And you're talking about on the online platform that they're using?
Right. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Would that be viable for
I'm gonna see if Carmelissa has some additional information on that, but I do believe I've seen that in other, just from my own experience with rental platforms, they will sometimes list their permit numbers so that we could probably include something like that.
Yeah, and then people will know it's pretty legit. Give them some kind of notice. And no, and given that it's going to be private, I don't know, whatever dwelling they're going to be doing it. When you say that, I don't know, it might be Mr. Morales's question, unhosted, because I remember when they had the task force, they were looking at hosted. For the members of our community, unhosted, could they explain that a little bit? And then who's responsible? Like, are they going to have it notarized that this person, since the owner is primarily responsible, but if they're going to have it unhosted, are they going to have someone notarize something? The contact person, is the contact person going to have something in notary in our files or whomever? Is the contact person the owner himself or herself? Or is the contact person, Ms. Morales, would you mind?
Yeah, no problem. Yeah. The contact person would not have to get as proposed, the contact person would not require a notarized authorization form. That form is for, say you're a tenant of like an apartment or a condominium, and you want to do a short-term rental, but you're not the owner of the home. But in terms of the contact person, it cannot be the owner. That would just be, you would put their information down, your primary contact person, because they have to be available 24 hours and throughout the entire stay. But if else to it, the owner will also have responsibility, so they can be contacted as well.
So we're going to make sure that the person is not just subletting, the tenant themselves is not subletting without the owner knowing. right?
That's correct.
There's,
Yes.
there's a way
Yes.
that that we're going to be able to control that as well, right?
Mhm.
And then, because we can't force people because of their private property, but is there any way to list maybe I guess that's kind of a set of rules or something conspicuous so that people know that Daly City, these are the rules of our Airbnb. I don't know how we would list it. I mean, a friendly way, but make sure it's posted for the people that come to let them, know and however it's worded. You guys are really good at that. So that it's friendly, but yet they're already noticed so that they can't say they don't know that these are the rules of our Daly City.
So Councilmember DiGiovanni, it sounds like you want them to list like the primary contact person, the emergency information in the actual Airbnb. Is that correct?
Yeah, that, and also if they would provide even like some of our rules in Daly City of our Airbnb along with that and put it in a conspicuous spot for whomever comes. Then that way they'll already be on notice that these are the rules, noise ordinance, and keep the noise down after 10, so they know, right? People are going to come from different areas, and if they want to post it in languages, that's fine as well. That would actually help us.
Yes, we can definitely do that. I mean, it could be as simple as having the application, the signed application. It could be in the form of a contract, and they could just post it in the Airbnb, or staff can develop some sort of contract that they can post. So that's something we can develop further on. Our ordinance doesn't permit us to do that.
And I trust that your staff definitely knows how to do this and did an excellent job. Thank you, Ms. Morales, and thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember DiGiovanni. Are there any other comments? Okay, hearing none, I'd like to provide my thoughts on this. First of all, Stephen, thank you for relaying the public's concerns. Looks like primarily the hosts and the short-term rental folks. I know as a government organization, and I really hate to infringe upon homeowner rights. But what precipitated this matter was the neighborhood and the quality of life. And as such, we live in this community. It is this community who has brought us to council. So first and foremost, we must address our community concerns. And again, this is what precipitated this. We have to take care of our communities. Whether it means crossing the line, as what we have here in regards to homeowners' rights, that may be a result of such. Now, I've heard comments about noticing, and based upon the slides that we received from Ms. Morales, I see all the different ways of notification. This is a forum for the public to come to council. We will not convene a special council meeting just on one topic, because if we did, we would never get anything done. Just today, I received a few emails. Our city clerk provided updated emails. And this is something that transpires all the time. Not to put fault on the STR folks, but to send us emails 1 hour or 2 hours before the council meeting. I mean, we had plenty of time here. So I just wanted to put that out there. I do and have learned something. I don't know the how to be successful, but I do know the secret to failure, and that is trying to please everyone. So what we have here is an ordinance that it's a little bit of a give and take for both sides. 120 days is what I'm recommending. That is 1/3 of a year. And I think that that's a happy medium that would satisfy both sides. we may have some challenges. Superhosts, as indicated by Airbnb, is just a title, and it comes with certain requirements that has been completed, like no complaints, keeping the property maintained. And true, that is something that perhaps we should take into consideration also. But when we start doing this, we start differentiating between folks. How do I become a superhost? Uh, what is superhost going to get me? Is it going to get me anything different? But what it has done, and it's still an STR. So that's just my thoughts on it. We are empowered by the community, but at the same time, we have to be cognizant of homeowner rights as well. So I put this out to council and everyone to be aware as we move forward. That's my comment. Thank you so much. All right, so are there any other comments by anyone else on council?
Mr. Mayor, I believe you were saying that you support the 120 for the unhosted. Is that correct?
That is correct. I brought that up. Staff is recommending 90 days, and I'm trying to come to a happy medium and increase that to 120 days. So that would be the motion for the amendments, unless there are any comments from my colleagues.
I would like to support the 90 days and then move into 120 later, but because the staff recommended for the reason, but we're trying to find a compromise, correct?
Okay, so you're recommending 90 days as recommended by staff. Are there any other comments?
Mr. Mayor, I think that moving to a compromise would be having to 100 days in between
Oh, that's
what
good.
staff has recommended and then what you're offering. But that's my thought.
I support that.
Councilmember Buenaventura, did you have a comment?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I do support what the Vice Mayor just indicated of 100 days. I think that's a good number. I will say that
Me too.
when we brought up the issue about superhosts, what I've come to learn in some of the discussions is that superhost is actually a label awarded to the host of the property, and it doesn't really address the neighborhood complaints. It just basically says that the host was a great host to them, but not necessarily they were a great host to the neighborhood and attentive to the complaints of people. So I don't really think Superhost was all that helpful in analyzing and assessing what we should do as a council. So with that in mind, I do think that the staff has put together a really good, fair package. And so I fully support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Buenaventura. Any other comments?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I support the 100 days that the Vice Mayor proposed.
Okay, any other comments?
Mr. Mayor, if I can comment, I stand aligned with my fellow colleagues. I think that 100 days is pretty fair. I think in the staff report, they said it's between a 90 and amenable to increasing to 120. I think that's a good compromise. So that's where I'm stand.
Okay, I recommended the 120 days because it's an even number and it's 3 months. Is that 3 months? No, that's 4 months, 1/3 of a year. So with that being said, there's been some thoughts and discussion based upon everyone here. So at this particular time, I will entertain a motion from anyone as to the recommended changes on the ordinance for staff.
Motion to approve the ordinance with the stipulation of having a maximum of 100 days for unhosted stays, but everything else included within the work that staff had provided or recommendations.
All right, thank you, Vice Mayor. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay, we have a second. So, Madam City Attorney, did you receive the requested amendments and on the ordinance and did you
Yes,
get?
thank you, Mr. Mayor. With that, with the amendment to 100 days of the unhosted stay, through the mayor would request a motion for the city attorney to read by title only.
Yes, Madam City Attorney, yes. So the next action is for a council member to introduce the ordinance. And I'll defer to the Vice Mayor as it was your motion to introduce the ordinance.
Actually, wait, maybe have a motion to read by title only first.
Oh,
Sorry
okay.
for the formality.
Okay, motion to read, motion for the city attorney to read by title only. Madam City Attorney.
Is that a motion from the council?
Okay, I'll
Yes.
make the motion that we have the city attorney read the ordinance by title only. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Madam City Attorney, please proceed.
Thank you. With that amendment of 100 days, this is an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Daly City, adding Chapter 5.92 to the Daly City Municipal Code regarding short-term rentals. And we will now entertain the council member to introduce the ordinance.
Okay, Madam Vice Mayor, would you kindly introduce the ordinance?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion to introduce ordinance. Proposed ordinance. Is that it?
That's good. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's close enough. I was I was probably going to read the entire ordinance and repeat what the city attorney said, but I think that's good enough. Vice Mayor, thank you.
Okay, we do have a second recommended action, Mr. Mayor, and there are fees that need to be adopted by resolution.
Oh, okay. Municipal code and adoption of the short-term rental fee. So that's separate?
Yes, we do need a resolution for that.
Okay. So can we adopt a resolution by roll call or do we create a motion?
We need a motion, second, and then by roll call.
Okay, thank you. So for the motion, I'll make the motion to adopt the short-term rental fees.
Second.
First and the second. Okay, may I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Di Giovanni,
Aye.
Ms. Manalo,
Aye.
Dr. Rod,
Aye.
Mr. Buenaventura,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvester.
Aye. Okay, I thank you so much. The next
Thank you.
item, thank you, Madam City Attorney, Ms. Morales and Ms.
Thank you.
Motherhead. Great work. It took a long time. I do recall someone at council meeting saying, why is this taking so long? And with due diligence, and we finally came till today. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is under communications. Item number 7, approval of written response to 2020 San Mateo County Civil Grand Jury Report, ransomware. It's not enough to think you are protected. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Nevin, and you have the floor, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. Regarding this item, staff recommends that the City Council approve the draft written response to the San Mateo County Civil Grand Jury Report titled Ransomware. It is not enough to think you are protected, and authorize the city manager to transmit the approved correspondence to the judge of the Superior Court as requested. The San Mateo County Civil Grand Jury issued their report in October of 2020 that was directed to the governing bodies of public entities in San Mateo County, urging them to have their IT staff confidentially and urgently assess their respective ransomware protection strategies. The grand jury report was informed partly through a survey of all public entities in San Mateo County in December 2019. The judge of the Superior Court requested a written response to their report. Following approval by the City Council of the draft written response, including any direction and input, the city will transmit the response to the Superior Court as requested. In addition, the final response will be placed on both the San Mateo County Civil Grand Jury website and the City of Daly City website. And a copy will be filed with the Daly City office of the city clerk. Additionally, as recommended by the Civil Grand Jury, a confidential internal report will be completed and provided to the City Council by June 30th, 2021. I have already directed staff to provide a draft of this internal report. In summary, staff recommends that the City Council review and approve the attached draft written response to the San Mateo County Civil Grand Jury report. Ransomware, it is not enough to think you are protected, and authorize the city manager to transmit and approve the approved correspondence to the judge of the Superior Court. This concludes my presentation, and I'm available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nevin. Are there any questions for Mr. Nevin? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept the grand jury response as prepared by the City of Daly City to the judge of the San Mateo grand jury. I'll make that motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? Okay, motion to no
A
roll.
voice vote is fine.
A voice, a voice vote.
I read
Okay,
your mind.
thank you, Rose. All those in favor say aye.
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 Was that a nay, Dr. Rod?
It was I. It was my son was.
All right, thank you, Dr. Rod. Thank you, Mr. Nevin, and thank you to staff for working on this report. I think it couldn't come at a better time given what Daly City has been through, and we learned a lot from it, and I'm sure that if needed, other cities will be calling and say, well, what did you do? What did you do? And it was very unpleasant, but we made it through it thanks to the leadership of Ms. Maltby. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is item number 8, appropriate funds and award construction contract for the Gellert Park renovations project. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Chu. I see you're here, and is it Mr. Ewan? Are you here also?
Hello, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Oh, there's Mr. Ewan. All right, you guys have the floor.
So, good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Good evening. I'm going to turn this over to Alex. Alex is one of our newest engineers. He spent countless hours working on the project. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Alex.
Thank you, Richard. Good evening, everybody. Staff recommends that the City Council approve the design documents for the Gellert Park renovations project, affirm the CEQA determination of categorical exemption, accept all responsive bids, and award a construction contract to Kingdom Pipelines in the amount of $391,218. Also, appropriate $445,000 of parkland dedication fees to fully fund the project, and authorize the city manager to execute all necessary contract documents on behalf of the city. In 2019, city staff had worked with Supervisor Canepa's office to secure Measure K grant funds to support the county's Shared Vision 2025 plan to create a community that is healthy, livable, collaborative, environmentally conscious, and prosperous. In May of 2019, the San Mateo County Board of Supervisors approved the allocation of $926,000 of Measure K grant funds to the City of Daly City for the proposed Gellert Park renovations project. And in June of 2019, City Council accepted the Measure K funds and appropriated the funds to the Gellert Park renovations project. As part of the Gellert Park renovations project, the project consists of the addition of a new ADA compliant prefabricated restroom building, the replacement of existing playground equipment, renovation of the existing barbecue area, and the replacement of existing tennis and basketball court light fixtures with energy efficient LED fixtures. The replacement of the playground equipment is substantially complete as of November 6, 2020, and the replacement of the existing tennis and basketball court light fixtures with the efficient LED fixtures was completed in May of 2020. In February of 2020, City Council authorized an agreement with Public Restroom Company to purchase and install a prefabricated restroom building through the Board National Purchasing Cooperative. So at this time, the Public Restroom Company has finished construction of the prefabricated restroom building offsite at one of the multiple manufacturing factories that they have and is ready for delivery to Geller Park for final installation. The construction contract recommended for award and for this to tonight will complete the remaining improvements required for the Measure K grant. The work includes the installation of sewer, electrical lines, and site preparation needed prior to the delivery and installation of the new ADA compliant prefabricated restroom building from Public Restroom Company, as well as the renovation of the existing barbecue area. The project received 9 bids, which ranged from $391,218 to $798,788. The apparent low bidder, Kingdom Pipelines of San Francisco, California, has been in business since 1999. The contractor has performed similar work for other public agencies, such as the City of Brisbane, City and County of San Francisco, and the City of Burlingame. The total estimated construction cost for this part of the project is $489,022.50, which includes the $391,218 for the construction contract award and an additional $97,804.50 for contingency, inspection, and contract administration. An additional $445,000 is needed above the previously allocated $951,000 in project account 31317,490 to fund the construction cost of the project. This action will appropriate $445,000 of unallocated parkland dedication fees to fully fund the Geller Park renovations project. So at this time, staff recommends that the City Council approve the design documents for the Geller Park renovations project, affirm the CEQA determination of categorical exemption, accept all responsive bids and award a construction contract to Kingdom Pipelines in the amount of $391,218. $391,218, my mistake. Appropriate $445,000 of parkland dedication fees to fully fund the project, and finally, to authorize the city manager to execute all necessary contract documents on behalf of the city. Staff is available to answer any further questions.
First of all, congratulations, Alex. Second of all, job well done. Your boss was looking over, and even though you made a mistake, he still kept that same face, and you'll be fine. So keep smiling. Okay, with that being said, are there any questions for Mr. Ewan?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Probably no surprise, but I want to stay consistent in my inquiry and quest to be fair to especially the small business minority community. So my 2 questions are, can you tell me a little bit more about Kingdom Pipeline, more than what's beyond the staff report that you referenced? And what kind of outreach efforts was done and to get the bids, and what kind of communities, or just give me an idea of the process so I can satisfy the inquiry. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Benaventura. So after we received bids we do a bid analysis for the project. In the process of analyzing Kingdom Pipeline's bid, we reached out to references that were part of the bid package itself. So they provided references, for example, from the city of Brisbane, city of Burlingame, and the city and county of San Francisco. I've spoken with the city of Brisbane and the city of Burlingame. City and county of San Francisco did not get back to me yet. However, for the two that I had spoken with, both had provided really good reviews in regards to the work that they've performed in their particular cities. So we do the bid analysis to make sure that the bid package itself is responsive prior to actually awarding the project. And one of those steps is to check references. We need to make sure that all the documents are in order and before we actually move forward with this process.
I'm more interested in the company in general in terms of who they are. Are they a minority owned business? We're also, the outreach efforts to reach a sort of a more broader section of the community and make sure everybody else gets a fair chance at getting these bids. So I really want to know more about the composition of the company, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so Councilmember Buenaventura, so yeah, in regards to our typical bid process, our projects are advertised. They go out to local building exchanges in addition to being placed on the city's website. Oftentimes, the outreach, particularly for this size project, will involve contractors in the particular area nearby, because if contractors come far away based on this relatively small size project, it doesn't make economic sense for those contractors to come from very far away. And so typically the local building exchanges are the ones that are typically reaching out to most of the contractors that are interested in these types of projects. Again, it is advertised and also put on our website. With that being said, we are continuing to work on our procurement policy in regards to making adjustments to focus in on minority, disadvantaged, maybe veteran-owned businesses, and that's something that we still are continuing to work with Tim Nevin, our finance director, as well as city attorney's office to come out with that revised procurement policy. Also keeping in mind that it needs to also be compliant with state public contract code. So that is still being worked on at this time.
Great, that answers my question, and I feel good about that little bit more of information. I did note in the report that the engineers who prepared the bid I thought I saw they were out of Oakland. So it gives me some hope that we're reaching more broader community. So thank you very much, guys. Good job.
Thank you, Councilmember Buenaventura. That is correct. The electrical portion of the package itself for the plans were prepared by Zeiger Engineers based out of Oakland. They're a consultant firm that specializes in electrical work. And then the majority of the site design, the sewer design, that was actually performed in-house.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions for Mr. Chu or Mr. Ewan?
No questions, Mayor, but may I make a comment?
Sure, please.
Thank you so much. I just want to thank you, Alex and Director Chu, for your hard work, and want to acknowledge and thank Supervisor Canepa for never forgetting about us here in Daly City. And just seeing this come into fruition, we know that our community members are avid tennis players. They utilize this a lot. There's been many events in that barbecue area, and I know people will be looking forward to the upgrades in that respect, and even with a prefabricated restroom. So it's exciting to see the upgrades in a heavily utilized park in our community. And I just wanted to extend congratulations on the hard work that you all have done to staff. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Pam, did you have something?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to take the time to like Supervisor Canepa and the whole County Board of Supervisors as well for their support. And Mr. Chu, Alex, I know how hard you put a lot of work into it and the design, and we did a lot of things in-house. I want people to know that a lot of that, right? Mr. Chu has done a lot of in-house things during this process of the Giller Park. And so that's really exciting, and looking forward to hopefully that we have accessibility within for the children. I think that hopefully Alex and Mr. Chu, that there was thought being into the playground to where children of disabilities of all or abilities are able to access our playground. I hope that that is was a big part of the fruition of that as well. I hope we're getting that a wheelchair access swing. Is that a part of this, Mr. Chu?
Yeah, Alex, you can comment on that, but our play structure has just been completed, and it does include accessibility for all kids. And I think Alex, we just opened that up a little while ago, so it's available for kids to use.
Fabulous.
That's correct. Yes.
Fabulous, because even one child should be able to play in a play structure when they go by. So really, that's very heartfelt. And I know a lot of parents out there really, truly appreciate that well, and the children as well, because they know more than what we give them credit for, whether they're in a wheelchair or not. So thank you so, so much. You see how you make an impact in people's lives. Not just are you working in Daly City, but you're really transitioning and helping others and to be able to enjoy their lives. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And thank you, Mr. Mayor, and to all the staff. Please convey my thoughts and heart feelings. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Are there any other comments? Okay, I have 6 of them. But some of them is going to be combined, so it's going to go pretty quickly. First of all, Mr. Ewan, thank you. I was listening to your presentation very intently until you said the magic word, and you actually said it twice, and that is barbecue. And I'm glad to hear that that's not going away. It's still going to be there because I've spent many a day there at the barbecue pits. That's number 1. Number 2 is combination of what you included, which was the lights and the field work already done. I appreciate your foresight and us moving along. So that's actually 3 comments in 1. The other comment, listening to you spout off the numbers, and you said something like 50 cents. And I'm very appreciative of that, because I've always learned if you watch the pennies, the dollars will take care of themselves. So good job on that as well. And my last comment, how can we not say no? So great job, all of you. And with that said, I'll open it up for any last comments. Okay, hearing none, I'd like to call for, first of all, a motion to appropriate funds and award the construction contract for the Gellert Park renovations project. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Okay, so we have Vice Mayor motion, second by D. Giovanni. Any further discussion? All those in, let's see, nope, this is roll call. May I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Di Giovanni,
Aye.
Ms. Manalo,
Aye.
Dr. Rod,
Aye.
Mr. Buenaventura,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvester.
Aye. That motion carries. Thank you all so much. Again, thank you to staff. Great job.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Vice Mayor, City Council members.
All right. Moving on to public appearances and oral communications. There's Stephen. Where? There you go. Okay.
We have no new comments.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Salty. Next item is appointments to board, commission, or membership committee appointments. Anyone? Okay. None. The next is council committee reports. Anyone? Okay, no council committee reports. The next one is city council reports. Anyone from city council? Okay. Yes. Is that you, Dr. Rod? Yes, go ahead.
It is. It's me. So I know. I just want to promote this event by the Arts and Culture Commission. So they're having a artist dialogue with one of my good friends, Kimberly Acebo Artechi, and she'll be talking about fine art for the people. So it's tomorrow, Tuesday, November 10th, from 7 o'clock to 7:45, and you could register at http://bit.ly/DC artist chat NOV10. You can go to all the different social media from Daly City to find out more information. That's it from me.
Thank you, Dr. Rod. Are there any other?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, just one quick.
Sure. Go ahead, Pam.
Thank you. So I just want to know that, let everybody know that our Veterans Day is coming up, and even though we'll be closed at a city, but to all our veterans that have gone before us for our freedom and for everything else, that if you see one, thank one, and never forget, not just on Veterans Day, but every day, that your service and your sacrifice is for all of us, our freedom, and to your families. So happy Veterans Day to all that have served. And I know that within our police department, we have several veterans. So my hats go off to them that they are still serving, and they're serving in blue, right, Mr. Mayor? A lot that you know of serve in blue as well. So you to serve and sacrifice. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember DiGiovanni. To add on to that, I was driving today and passing by Colma, and I saw a big patch of pink. And I'm saying to myself, what is that? And being an old guy, I had to get closer and closer. And as I got closer, it was basically the US flag on each one of the graves.
Wow.
So I immediately said, okay, Veterans Day. So thank you for bringing that up, Councilmember DiGiovanni. Much appreciated. We should not forget. Okay, are there any other city council reports? Hearing none, we're going to move to staff. Stephen, where's Shauna this evening? I miss her face.
Yeah, Shauna was unable to make it this evening. So I do have one very quick announcement, and it's regarding the city's ballot measure Q, the Daly City Local Relief and Recovery Measure. We are very encouraged by the returns. As a reminder, Measure Q allows the city to address our local recovery, including supporting residents and local businesses. Right now, we're still waiting for the results to be made official, but at this time, we do want to thank all the residents who participated in the election. We'll be sure to keep everyone informed and updated, and we're looking forward to working with our community to address their priorities here in Daly City. So we'll keep you updated on that.
Thank you, Stephen. That's very, very important. I believe that needs to pass by majority, right? And we're way ahead.
We are, yeah. It's looking really good. So.
Okay, but we'll wait until the lady sings at the end. So I hear you. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, the next item is adjournment, and I'd like to turn it over to Councilmember DiGiovanni to go first, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to adjourn in the memory of Tom Moore. I'll read some of the information that's provided from the San Mateo Daily Journal. San Mateo County Education Administrator passes away. Tom Moore, longtime teacher, principal, school administrator, superintendent, college president, college board trustee, passed away Wednesday morning. He was 85 years old. He was born and raised in Ohio. Moore moved to the Bay Area more than 50 years ago and embarked on a career in public education, serving as a high school chemistry and math teacher, principal at 3 high schools in San Mateo County. As assistant superintendent and ultimately as superintendent of the San Mateo Union High School District, after his retirement from the high school district in 2004, he served as president at Canada College for 6 years, and then as a trustee of the San Mateo County Community College District. He also served on many boards, commissions, committees, and received countless awards in recognition of his 5 decades of public and community service. The college district sent out a community message Wednesday about his passing. It was at the district that Moore had served the public in a long career, but carried him through a number of jobs as an educator. He last served as a member of our San Mateo County Community College District Board of Trustees for 4 years until 2018. Tom's life was filled with family and friends who loved and cherished him, who loved and supported him. He battled cancer for numerous years and recently just lost that battle. He is survived by his wife of 46 years, Sandy Moore, and Molly, a black poodle, 3 children, 7 grandchildren, 2 siblings, and a host of extended family and friends. His family asked for their privacy at this time and request in lieu of flowers that donations be given in Tom's memory to the San Mateo County Community College Foundation for this thing called Project Change. And CASA, San Mateo County, or Peninsula Humane Society and SPCA, or one of his other favorites, Muttville Senior Dog Rescue. So he will be sorely missed by all of us in our community. May he rest in peace. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Council Member Di Giovanni. I have 2 to report. I'll first start off with Mr. Antonio Maracha. He's a Daly City resident, and he recently passed. And what was so special about him is he used to work with my wife. As a matter of fact, he trained her at the San Francisco Police Department Identification Bureau. So we will miss him. The next 2 is especially dear to me because as a parent, and I think I've said this before, I cannot fathom losing a child, especially one that goes before you. So the first one is Elmer James Brewster. The mother, Barbara Brewster, was the first African-American police officer to make the SWAT team in San Francisco. So he passed away at I think the age was 49 years old. A new one that I didn't have listed on the adjourned in memory list is Maria Medina. Her son, by the name of Rylan Wyatt Medina Anton. And Maria Medina is a KPIX Channel 5 news anchor. And I'd like to adjourn in memory of her son who passed away. Okay, and then I believe we have one more. And pardon me, I'm just looking for the list here. I had it here in front of me. It was a family member of a Daly City police officer, and hang on while I find it. I think I don't want to get the name wrong, so okay, found it. Janet Marie DiGiacomo. DiGiacomo. It's Daly City PD's Officer Dante Giacomo's mother. And I'd like to adjourn in memory of his mom, Janet Marie Giacomo. And with that being said, are there any other adjourned in memories that we do not have listed? Okay, if we can kindly pause for a brief moment of silence, please. Okay, thank you so much. Be strong, stay safe. We are Daly City Strong, and until our next meeting, take care, everyone. This meeting is now adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.